Hey guys, I'm Yuruzi. This is part 4 of What If Naruto Was in Kingdom Hearts. So my name is Uzumaki Naruto. My dream is to be Hokage, but I'm not there yet. But with a demon in my navel I have work to do. Not only that, but now I got this giant key and this destiny. Perfect. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel and check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 16, Shadows That Bind to Darkness Once More. Irika sighed happily as he shut off the shower, pushing aside the curtain and letting the steam waft into the air. Wrapping a towel around his waist, he stepped over to the sink and reached for his toothbrush. A tug on his entire body, a cloud of smoke, and a coughing fit later found Irika staring at Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura, in the middle of the forest. "Irika-sensei." Naruto ventured nervously. Irika groaned, and made sure his towel was secure. "Yes Naruto, nice to see you too. And alive, though your timing is as good as ever," the Chunin scowled. Sakura blushed heavily. I'm sorry sensei. We just, saw that we needed to open the scrolls, and, well. The pink-haired girl averted her eyes. Irika sighed, and shook his head. He smiled. "Well, can't be helped. I'm glad to see you all made it through. Come on, let's get you in." Stiffly he turned and began walking into the imposing tower, Team 7 following. They went down a hard stone hallway, finally reaching a pair of large stone doors. Irika deftly shoved them open and walked through, ignoring the gawks he attracted from other ninja in the vast chamber. Particularly from Mitarashi Enko, who licked her lips and smirked as the Chunin approached. Irika fought down his blush. Team 7 has made it, with both scrolls and all members, Irika reported in a businesslike tone, not looking in the direction of any snickers he heard. Enko grinned. "Oh, I can see that," she purred suggestively. Damn it, damn it, damn it." He mentally chanted to himself as he blushed. The purple-haired woman's grin grew. "Well, if that's all, then I'll just be going," Irika said flatly, turning and heading back for the exit, one hand securely around his towel. "Wait up just 1 minute. Irika, was it?" Enko called. He sighed and turned around, as Enko walked up, still grinning. "The Hokage wanted to talk to you about something when you came here. So stick around. The place could use some eye candy." She winked, which made Irika's blush even worse. "Do you have a change of clothes for me?" he asked. Enko grinned. "You can send for them, but it'll take a while." "Dandy," Irika stated. "Well, no reason for you three to stand around all day. The quarters for the teams should be in the same place." With that, Irika turned and walked out the double doors, his face burning bright red at the cat calls and whistles that followed. Naruto followed, also rather embarrassed for his sensei and glaring back at Enko, who merely smirked sexily. "This is not what I was expecting," Sakura mumbled, her inner self chanting look. Look! Look! Damn it, so we're promised to Sasuke. Doesn't mean we're dead, but it's Irika-sensei. So? He's hot for an older guy. And way too old for me. Not too old for you to just look, you prude." Naruto blinked and stared as Sakura's face switched between teasing and murderous. He gulped, and increased his pace to match Irika's. "Irika-sensei. What's with Sakura-chan?" Irika sighed and shook his head. "Naruto, there are some things about women you're just going to have to find out for yourself." "Indeed," stated Kakashi, appearing behind them. Naruto and Sakura immediately began talking at once. "Kakashi-sensei, am I glad to see you. In the forest, we got attacked by this transsexual freak Dash. He bit Sasuke-kun and Dash. We fought this huge battle, and I totally kicked ass Dash. Naruto got eaten by a snake and I had to drag us all to safety Dash." "What?" Irika bellowed into the conversation, making Sakura and Naruto flinch. Sasuke snarled at his teammates. "Damn it, you shouldn't have told him about it." The Uchiha seethed. "Oh, what, we shouldn't be worried about you? The great, invincible Sasuke bastard?" Naruto shot back. Sakura bit her lower lip but stood firm. "Kakashi-sensei needs to know. And besides Sasuke-kun, you're not the only one that Orochimaru messed with." The temperature in the hallway seemed to drop 10 degrees, as both Irika and Kakashi wore twin expressions of shock. "Orochimaru?" Irika gasped. Kakashi grabbed Sasuke by the shoulder and looked into his eyes. What did he do to you? Tell me. The Jounin demanded. Sasuke scowled. He bit me. And put a weird seal on me, he stated, extremely reluctantly. Where? Sasuke turned slowly to one side, lifting up his hair from the back of his neck. He gritted his teeth as he felt it react, as though the seal was unwilling to be seen. I see, Kakashi stated simply, flatly. He turned to Naruto and Sakura. You two are alright otherwise, correct? Naruto flinched, and Kakashi mentally noted that he would have to teach the blonde better control of his emotions. The guy put this seal on me too. He didn't bite me. Just used his hand and put it on my stomach, Naruto got out, eyes indicating the significance of stomach. Kakashi sighed. All right. Naruto, Sakura, go with Iruka to the infirmary and get checked out. I'll be by soon to see your seal, Naruto, but for now I need to seal Sasuke's. Immediately, he finished in a tone that would clearly tolerate no dissent. Sasuke's scowl deepened, but he followed his teacher anyway, ignoring the concerned expression on Sakura's face. Kakashi-sensei, you'll take care of Sasuke-kun, right? Yes, I will. Now go. Oh, and Iruka, the Chunin frowned. Yes Kakashi, might want to see to the towel, the Jounin said quietly, with a hint of amusement in his tone. Iruka looked down and blushed heavily. His towel was nearly undone. With a scowl he pulled it up and tightened it around his waist. Yeah, thanks, he snorted, ignoring the blushing Sakura as he led her and Naruto down the hallway towards the clinic in the tower. Unseen by the Leaf Ninja, a single eye floated at the top of the hallway, watching their progress, before dissolving into sand. The third Hokage sighed as he made his down the hospital hallway. His long robes waving with every step, his keen eyes found the door he was seeking. Stepping up to it, he knocked. Come in, was the reply, and the Hokage entered, the hospital door sliding open with barely a whisper. Leaning over his daughter, Ichiraku Tsuchi was looking over her still form with anxiety. Sarutobi closed the room door behind him and approached, keeping his distance out of habit. Protector the Hokage may be, but sometimes a little distance was needed between the shield and the target. Naruto made it to the tower, safe and sound, he began without preamble. Tsuchi turned away from Ayam and nodded, a slight smile on his wrinkled face. Good. I take it though, he ran into some trouble. Orochimaru, Sarutobi said simply, and the current ramen chef bared his teeth in a snarl. The snake. What's he doing back here? At a guess, nothing good, Sarutobi said quietly, discreetly casting a privacy jutsu around the room. Combined with our recent diplomatic problems with Suna, and something seems to be brewing. Invasion? Asked Tsuchi. Sarutobi frowned. Possibly. Countries in desperate straits do not always see reason. But enough of that. What is her condition? Sarutobi nodded to Ayam. Tsuchi sighed, rubbing the back of his head. Even my master couldn't have predicted Naruto getting the Keyblade, and his notes on anything like that occurring were purely theoretical. It was considered almost impossible. Sarutobi chuckled. Well, he is Konoha's most surprising ninja, the Hokage noted. The ramen chef sat down in a nearby plastic chair, one hand to his chin in thought. Sarutobi nodded and became serious once more. He's changed. Not as though he's being influenced, but more like he's being truer to himself. More mature, more thoughtful. Sarutobi smirked slightly. Far more sarcastic. The Keyblade seems to bring out the true power of its bearer's inner self, not to mention it serves to link his heart to those he cares about, Tsuchi mused. He shook his head as Sarutobi raised an eyebrow. You mean? That's what happened here. He formed a link to Ayam. Looks that way, Tsuchi agreed. Whether it was acting to increase his resistance to his tenant's influence, or increase his power. Or both. It's hard to tell. She can't tell you? Asked Sarutobi. The ramen chef shook his head. When she came to, she didn't know what had happened. I brought her here to be checked out just in case, but everything's normal, for lack of a better term. Normal according to the medic ninja. Or normal according to you? Sarutobi asked. Tsuchi shrugged. Her chakra coils, such as they are, look fine. But there is definitely leftover magical energy inside her. The link is offline, but not broken. Of course, the real question becomes, Why I am? Sarutobi mused. Why would the Keyblade link her heart to Naruto's? The Hokage looked at Ichiraku. Do you have a theory? Several, actually, Teuchi confessed with a wry smile, but nothing firm. I'll have to do my own tests. And keep Ayam-chan from finding out. Of course, Sarutobi agreed. And Naruto as well. He's got enough on his mind as it is at the moment. Teuchi nodded, and turned back to his daughter, as the Hokage turned and exited. The old ninja frowned as he spied a black bird sitting on the window. It stared at him before flying off. Sarutobi shook his head, and used a body flicker jutsu to return to his office. Everything looked precisely the same as always, aside from one slight detail. The Hokage smirked. Jiraiya. Nice to see you again. A chuckle was his response, as Jiraiya the Sannin appeared, landing lightly on the floor with a grin and dramatic wave of his long white mane. Sensei, always a pleasure to see you, he returned. Sarutobi shook his head and walked to his desk, sitting behind it. What brings you home? Surely not the Chunin exams, the Hokage commented, rummaging in his desk for his pipe and tobacco. Jiraiya smirked. Yes and no. Heard about Snake Bastard showing up again and decided to drop by, see what I could do. The Hokage nodded, lighting his pipe and breathing in the rich smoke, before exhaling a smoke ring. I see. By the way, how is Mickey? Feisty and round-eared as ever, Jiraiya noted, settling down in the chair before the desk. To be honest though, he ranks as my #1 reason why to never get married. His wife is always hounding him. Heh. I'm sure there's a woman out there who could tame you, Sarutobi responded with a grin. Jiraiya smirked. We all have our callings, sensei, and marriage isn't one of mine, the Toad Sage replied. Now then. What's the bastard been up to? Looks like he's after the Sharingan, Sarutobi noted. Though he also seemed to have some interest in Uzumaki Naruto. The Kyuubi brat? Jiraiya asked with a frown. The Sharingan, I can understand. Bastard's always been obsessed with jutsus. But why a Jinchuriki? The Sannin grimaced, a terrible thought entering his mind. You don't think? I doubt he knows, Sarutobi replied. And even if he did, I doubt he would care all that much. Even while we were world hopping, he learned little about that. Jiraiya nodded thoughtfully, as Sarutobi went on. It probably has more to do with Naruto becoming the bearer of the Keyblade. Sarutobi inwardly smirked at the gobsmacked expression on his former student's face. Still got it, he thought. Kid has the lousiest luck, the Toad Sage declared at last, shaking his head. What does Teuchi have to say about it? Not much. No one could have predicted that the Keyblade would choose Naruto. From what we've seen, and what Naruto's told me, the Kyuubi now has a direct link to Naruto's heart, if he uses its chakra to power the Keyblade. If he uses it without the Keyblade, things should be as the fourth Hokage designed, but... Sarutobi sighed. Jiraiya frowned. Hard to tell, HM. Well. I'll give the seal a look over, see if it needs modification, and look the kid over too, Jiraiya stated. If that damn thing's chosen him, it's best he knows what he's in for. Jiraiya, I'm trying to keep that from him until he's ready, the Hokage stated. Jiraiya snorted. If he's old enough to kill, and old enough to be chosen by the Keyblade, I say he's old enough to be told the truth. Right now he's got enough stress on him, Sarutobi argued calmly. Adding more is not going to help. He needs to become aware gradually. And besides, it's not as though we actually know what the future holds for him, no. But we both know what will happen if he falls, Jiraiya said quietly. The Hokage nodded. He knows this. And beating it into his head will not prevent it. I want him to try and live normally as long as possible. He's begun to make friends, allies, people who trust and care for him. I don't want him withdrawing behind his mask because he's afraid of hurting them. Jiraiya took a deep breath. And blew it all out, shaking his head. Your call, old man. I just hope you're right. Sarutobi looked out of one of the windows in his office, a pair of birds flying in the clear blue sky. It was a peaceful sight. But one that reminded the Hokage of how easily that peace could be broken. So do I, he replied quietly, puffing his pipe. I have to seal this, quickly, Kakashi stated, finishing drawing the circle of intricate patterns on the ancient stone floor. Sasuke sat in the middle, shirt off, hunched over, the cursed seal mark glaringly obvious against his pale skin. The Uchiha frowned. What is the danger of this thing? When it activated, I felt What you felt was not true power, Sasuke, Kakashi stated, voice hard and serious. Sasuke felt a slight familiarity with the tone. It reminded him of his father, when he had done something foolish. He schooled his face into its usual apathetic expression and turned his thoughts away from his family. What do you mean? Sasuke asked. Kakashi sighed, standing up. The seal does not give you more power, Sasuke. It simply allows you to mold chakra more efficiently, because it molds more of it for you. Kakashi walked over to in front of Sasuke and crouched down, seeing eye to eye with the Uchiha survivor. Not only that, but it influences your mind. It alters your subconscious, slowly twisting you into a mindless tool for its maker. Orochimaru, Sasuke answered his own unspoken question. Kakashi nodded grimly. It lets you mold chakra more efficiently, but it can only do so much. If you rely on it, it becomes a handicap, like an addictive drug. If I don't seal it now, and if you use it, then your development stops right here. Sasuke's eyes widened, and then narrowed. He felt so betrayed. All that raw power, he'd felt invincible. But it was only an illusion. Do it, he said at last. Kakashi nodded, his single visible eye softening. This will hurt, immensely, the Jounin told him. Sasuke made no response, just increased his focus. Kakashi stood up and walked behind the Uchiha, making the appropriate hand seals. Fuja Hoin. Kakashi roared, slamming his hands down on the seal. Sasuke screamed in agony as white-hot pain burned through his body, his eyes closed as tightly as he could get them. Abruptly, the pain subsided, and Sasuke collapsed to the cold stone floor, breathing steadily. He stared into the darkness of the room with blank eyes. A pair of black boots entered his vision. Sasuke tilted his head up, barely able to move, but it was enough to see the figure of the man standing over him, seemingly clothed in darkness. You have been connected, said the man, quietly but with a commanding presence that fell over Sasuke like a pile of rocks. Sasuke took a shaky breath. Who are you? He asked. The man continued to stand there, unmoving. Part of Sasuke's mind wondered what had happened to Kakashi, why he wasn't doing anything about this intruder. Tied to the darkness, soon to be completely eclipsed, the man went on. Sasuke just felt more confused, angrier, and more fearful, though this he defiantly shoved deep into the pit of his chest. What do you mean? Sasuke got out with gritted teeth. Everything seemed to grow darker, his vision fading, the cold stone underneath him no longer uncomfortable. There is so very much to learn. You understand so little. But in time, the man said, clear and ominous through the fog consuming his mind. Sasuke finally closed his eyes, giving into a dreamless sleep. Kakashi frowned down at his student and tried to make sense of his rambling. He then looked where he was staring. His blood ran cold. Hello, Kakashi, a hissed, high-pitched voice spoke out of the darkness. Kakashi's lone visible eye widened as the pale form of Orochimaru entered the dim light of the chamber. He was dressed in a Konoha Jounin uniform, same as Kakashi's, with a Konoha Hitayate across his brow. Orochimaru, the copy ninja snarled, stepping in front of Sasuke. Orochimaru smirked. Oh, how you've grown since the last time we met, he crooned. You already know that seal? Most impressive. What do you want? Kakashi growled. Orochimaru grinned. What do I want? I can't just visit old friends. Reminisce about yesterday's? I should think you would appreciate it. There is nothing you have done for me to appreciate, Kakashi returned angrily, and whatever it is you've come to do, I will stop you. Orochimaru shook his head, a small laugh escaping his lips. I don't need to do anything more. Sasuke-kun is already mine. Soon, he will come looking for me. Soon, I will have him, and his wonderful bloodline. The snake Sannin licked his lips with a leer. Kakashi held down the rage he felt, as well as the doubt that crept behind it. Sasuke is a Konoha ninja. He would never go to you. Not to your empty promises, and shadows bound in the dark, Kakashi retorted. Orochimaru laughed again. Really? Are you so sure? Even you have to have seen the darkness inside him. The rage. He lives for vengeance, he needs it. He has no other ties to this world than that. And if I can give him the means to kill his brother, well. Orochimaru licked his lips again, and Kakashi felt the doubt rise in him. He'd seen Sasuke's anger, all too well, his desire to be the best to take revenge. You've also seen him with Naruto and Sakura, a voice within him pointed out, gently but firmly. He cares for them, or at least is beginning to. You're wrong. He won't join you. He is not as lost as you might think. The Jounin got out, quietly but more confidently than before. Orochimaru snorted. Do you really think the Kyuubi brat can save him? Or the pink-haired girl? Even with the Keyblade, the boy cannot save Sasuke-kun. No, Kakashi, Sasuke is like me. He wants power. And he knows where to find it. The Raikiri formed in his hand in an instant, Kakashi performing the hand seal so fast few ninja on the planet could have made them out. The raw power of lightning crackling in his hand, Kakashi glared in sheer determination. Then I will destroy you, to keep him safe. Even if I die, at least you will be gone. This declaration, so full of heart and conviction, was laughed at by the mad Sannin. If you think you can, then do so, Orochimaru shrugged, laughing as he turned his back and began walking away. Kakashi tensed, ready to charge, slammed the screaming Raikiri through the chest of the Sannin. But the crushing weight of reality fell on him, and the Jounin let the Raikiri die. Give my life to destroy him? What was I thinking? Kakashi knew there were few ninja who were a match for him, but Orochimaru was definitely out of his league. Not only in sheer power, but also in experience. If he had charged, he'd have given his life for nothing. So Kakashi watched Orochimaru vanish into the darkness, fists clenched, and feeling as though he had failed his old sensei once again. Chapter 17, Preliminaries, a look back. Point 1. Ayam sighed, wiping her brow free of sweat as she finished setting down some boxes of ingredients in the storage room of the ramen stand. She smiled and walked out to the front, where her eyes met a familiar sight. Erika. It's nice to see you. The Chunin gave her a slightly strained smile in return, and looked down at the table. Ayam noticed his frown. Something wrong? Erika sighed, and shook his head. Not exactly. My usual please. Ayam nodded, and set to work on the Chunin's usual ramen bowl. A few minutes of her frying noodles, and he spoke again. Where's your father? Out, apparently to meet some old friend of his who happens to be a doctor, the ramen girl spoke, shaking her head. Honestly, father can be so overprotective at times. Oh yeah, I heard about. You know, Erika got out awkwardly. He smiled a bit. Glad to see you feeling better. Trust me, it's even better for me, Ayam replied with a grin. She finished adding the meat and hard-boiled eggs to the miso ramen, and set it before him. Erika breathed in the scent of the bowl with a broad smile. Just how I like it. Thanks for the food. Erika cried, before digging in. In between his slurps, Ayam noticed Erika's worried brow. You know, you're going to end up with wrinkles if you keep worrying like that, Ayam pointed out. Erika paused in his eating and shrugged, a self-deprecating smile on his face. Yeah, well. Lot to worry about. Oh? Ayam asked. Erika sighed. Naruto's made it to the third stage of the Chunin exams, but, well. Ayam smiled comfortingly. I'm sure he'll be fine. Don't worry. Erika shrugged. Sorry. It's just what I'm used to. I mean, first the academy, then Mizuki, all the missions he's been on. Erika shook his head and sighed. He chuckled. I imagine the next hurdle after this will be women and dating. Oh? What about Sakura? Ayam asked, her eyes a bit narrowed at the thought of the Harino girl. Erika smiled. I think he's actually rethinking his eternal crush on her. He definitely treats her more like a sister now, which will hopefully encourage her to get more serious about being a ninja. Ayam nodded and grinned. So, looks like he's maturing a bit more. Erika nodded. Definitely. Ayam tucked her fist under her chin, leaning forward with a thoughtful expression on her face. Erika paused his eating, again, to look at her. What? She smiled. Well, then it looks like I may have a chance after all. Ayam hummed with a wink at him. Erika spat out his broth in shock. What? The Chunin gasped. Ayam maintained her thoughtful, cool demeanor. Sure, there's the age difference, but he has started becoming very cute lately. I might have to stake my claim soon, before some other girl gets their claws in him. She surmised with a slight blush on her cheeks. Erika sputtered incoherently as she sealed her victory with a wink. Me. The ramen girl just laughed, and gave him a free bowl of miso ramen in apology. Though she passed it off as a joke, she couldn't help but wonder a little at where her playful thoughts had come from and why. Donald Duck walked down one of the long corridors of Disney Castle, webbed feet lightly smacking against the rug-covered, marble floors. He smiled happily as he came to the huge double doors to the throne room. Exactly why did they make the doors so big anyway? The duck wondered, opening the smaller entrance in the doors. He entered the vast throne room, eyes on the pristine white throne itself. "Your Majesty!" Donald called out. No response. Donald frowned, even more as he saw the throne was empty. That's odd. He should be here around now, Donald thought. He closed his eyes and expanded his magical senses, an exercise he'd practiced ever since he'd first begun to learn his art. He's not here. I can't even sense him in the castle. Truth be told, the magical interference from the castle and cornerstone of light beneath it made locking onto specific signatures a little tricky, but the duck mage had always been able to pick out his king amid the static. Ruff! Ruff! Donald opened his eyes, startled. The king's yellow dog, Pluto, had crept out from behind the throne, a sealed envelope in his mouth. Donald took it from the dog as Pluto settled back on his haunches. The duck opened the envelope and looked through the letter. His eyes widened. Why? The duck mage rushed out, running as fast as he could. His keen eyes scanned frantically everywhere as he ran, until finally he found himself in the garden. The armored, sleeping form of Goofy, the captain of the Disney Knights, was locked onto. "Goofy! Get up! We've got problems." "Snore," was his only response. Donald seethed and pointed his finger into the air. Crack-a-boom. Yee-haw! Goofy shouted, twitching from the lightning strike. He looked at the mage and chuckled sheepishly. Something I can help you with, Donald." "Goofy, we have a serious problem." "The king." Donald lowered his voice. "The king is missing." "What?" "The king is impeached." Donald put a hand over Goofy's snout and made a shushing sound. "Quiet. We can't let anyone know about this, all right?" What about Queen Minnie?" "And Daisy?" Goofy asked quietly, after Donald let him go. The duck magician shook his head violently. "No, we can't let even them know about this." "Know about what?" Donald gulped and turned around. Queen Minnie stood there, arms crossed across her chest as she eyed Donald with a deceptively friendly smile. Daisy, Minnie's lady-in-waiting, gave her boyfriend the evil eye. The duck laughed nervously, scratching the back of his head, as Goofy cleared his throat. Donald began nervously, as Daisy tapped her foot impatiently. Goofy, fortunately, was there with him. He'd help cover for him, right? Nothing, Your Majesty." "Definitely nothing about the king bein' missin', if that's what you're thinkin'," the knight dutifully reported, saluting. Donald groaned and slapped his forehead. "Brilliant, just brilliant." "He's what?" Minnie shouted, scowling. "Jiria." "On a distant world," said Toad Nin sneezed. He rubbed his nose and resumed his research of the local hot spring. On the same world, in the same village, within the tower at the center of Training Area 44, the genin had been assembled in the main arena chamber, before a slightly raised stone platform. On this, between a few ANBU stood the Sandame, hands behind his back. He was making a speech about the purpose and importance of the Chunin exams, but Naruto was unable to pay much attention. And so, in place of war, the Chunin exams serve to blah blah blah, yada yada yada, come on old man. Naruto mentally grumbled. He looked around at the other assembled genin in the huge chamber. Behind the stage the Hokage was standing on, a large stone statue of two hands in the ram's seal loomed. Above were catwalks on either side overlooking the entire tiled floor. "The strength of our villages is reflected in the strength of our youth." Gah! So bored. Naruto thought, eyes and attention still wandering. He looked up at the catwalks again and spotted Kakashi, who gave him an apologetic look. The Jounin had been unable to find a way to fix Naruto's seal, but had been assured by the Hokage that an expert would soon be available to take care of it. So far though, Naruto hadn't really felt all that different, but considering what that freak had done to Sasuke. Speaking of which, Naruto thought, turning his eyes to the Uchiha. He was looking a little less pale than usual, which was good. But he still carried his broken sword on his back, and had definitely been more surly lately. Then again, Sakura had been hovering over him 24/7, so he supposed the bastard would be in a bad mood. Great, bastard has the entire village kissing his ass and he doesn't give a damn. What the hell? So, remember you are fighting for the honor of your villages. A sickly-looking Jounin walked out in front of the gathered genin. He coughed. Okay, I'm Heiei Gecko. I'll be the test proctor. Now, as we've got too many genin who passed this year, we'll need to hold some preliminary matches before the real third test. If anyone wants to quit, you may do so now. Near the back of the group, Kabuto made to raise his hand. But a flash of familiar killing intent made him freeze. He traced it to the only sound village Jounin in the place, smirking at him. The Jounin narrowed his eyes meaningfully, and Kabuto, though confused, complied. Okay, as it stands, one student will fight an extra match, Heiei coughed. The digital display board up there will select 2 genin at random. The rules are simple, matches will go on until one is unable to continue or die. I'll end the match if I feel it's over, and I will tolerate no argument. Sakura grimaced and pulled her leather gloves out of her pouch, pulling them on. She cast a nervous look over at Sasuke, who ignored her. His attention was entirely on the display board. Sasuke-kun, are you sure you're dash? Shut up, I'm fine, the Uchiha snarled quietly. You've been doing nothing but annoying me ever since we got here. Naruto glared. Hey, bastard. She's just worried about you. Don't be such an asshole. Sasuke turned to Naruto, face stone cold. Naruto returned it, baring his teeth. Sakura looked nervously between the two. Until Sasuke unexpectedly smirked. I want to fight you most of all, Naruto. Naruto gawked, and raised an eyebrow. He searched Sasuke's face for hints of sarcasm. But there was none. Something seemed to tell Naruto, on a level he could barely perceive, that Sasuke wanted to fight him, not just to prove who was stronger but for something more. Something that didn't involve his revenge. The blonde ninja smiled back, feeling happier and calmer around the Uchiha than he had since. Well, ever. Yeah. I want to fight you too, Naruto returned earnestly. Sasuke nodded, his smirk becoming a little softer. Sakura blinked between the two, biting her lower lip, but looking slightly less tense. Anko walked nearer to the Hokage, eyes narrowed. Hokage-sama, are you sure you won't reconsider Sasuke dash? I'm sure, Sandaime said, quietly but as firm as steel. Anko nodded and backed off, as the Hokage and his escort went to his viewing box high above the observation decks. Alright everyone, up on the catwalks, you can watch from there, Heiei called out, drawing Team 7's attention once more. They followed the other students, assembling near Kakashi who was leaning against the wall, Ika Paradise in one hand as usual. Naruto rolled his eyes. You know Kakashi-sensei, if someone didn't know better they'd say you were addicted to that stuff, the blonde said in distaste. Kakashi just smiled. You just don't yet appreciate great literature, the Jounin said with a cool air. Guy shook his head and struck a dramatic pose next to his eternal rival. Oh Kakashi. How is it that your students burn with such youth, and yet their instructor has fallen into the darkness of depravity? He sniffled, tears threatening to bubble out of his eyes. You say something, Guy? Kakashi asked. Guy's tears abruptly vanished as he struck an angry pose, cursing Kakashi's cool and modern attitude. Naruto raised an eyebrow at Tenten who was leaning on the railing lining the catwalk. She glanced at Guy and shrugged in exasperation, smiling at him. He smiled back and leaned forward against the railing as well, looking out to the catwalk on the other side of the arena. A flash of killing intent brushed over his senses, and he locked onto the source. Gaara was staring at him, green eyes narrowed. Naruto glared back. Hey, Kabuto. You had an info card on that Gaara kid, right? Sakura asked, standing next to the older genin farther down the catwalk. Kabuto nodded, drawing the requested card and handing it to her, his eyes locked on the sound Jounin standing against a wall in the arena. Why does Orochimaru-sama want me to fight? Surely it'd be better for me to keep my abilities hidden. Sakura looked over the card, frowning at the records. Never a scratch on him, she muttered. How is that possible? I'll tell you how, Kiba spoke up, causing Sakura to turn and look at him. He can form sand into a shield around himself, instantly. Nothing can hurt him. The Inuzuka looked nervous, and Akamaru on his head whimpered. Sakura blinked. Ha! How do you know? We saw him, while we were heading for the tower, Shino spoke next, emotionlessly as always, but with a hint of strain that even Sakura could detect. Frowning, she looked at Hinata, who looked shaken at whatever memories that statement brought up. Saw him slaughtered a whole rain team without breaking a sweat, Kiba explained, grimacing. Even when they surrendered he just crushed them, like they were bugs. No offense Shino. None taken, the Aburame returned politely. Sakura looked over at Gaara, and shuddered as he glanced her way. The look in his eyes seemed to clutch at her heart in mind-numbing fear. Listen, Sakura, I really suggest that if you get this guy, you just forfeit. He's way too much for anyone, trust me, Kiba emphasized. Sakura bit her lower lip and said nothing, as Kabuto merely continued his staring match with the disguised Orochimaru. Somewhat near the Sand team, the Sound Genin were assembled, all three glaring at the Konoha ninja across. Zaku gripped his artificial hand menacingly as he glared at Sasuke, to which the Uchiha glared back, hand resting on the hilt of his broken sword. Alright, first fighters are coming up now, Heiei called, getting nearly everyone's attention. The display board flashed through several names, before settling on the first pair. Uchiha Sasuke vs Abumi Zaku. Looks like this is my lucky day, Zaku grinned, clenching his metallic hand in glee. He leapt down to the stone floor below, slamming his fist into the ground hard enough to spiderweb a tile, a low boom echoing throughout the chamber. No. Why did Sasuke-kun have to be first? Sakura thought with a frown. Sasuke moved to leap down, but Kakashi put a hand on his shoulder. The Uchiha looked at his sensei questioningly. Remember, if you do not keep control of the seal, I will withdraw you from the match. Understand? Kakashi asked. Grimly Sasuke nodded, tolerating a small, encouraging squeeze of his shoulder by his sensei before he leapt down. Both Sound and Leaf Ninja walked towards each other, stopping roughly 3 meters from each other with Heiei in the middle. The proctor coughed, before nodding. Ready. Begin, he said, and backed away. For a moment the two genin stared at each other. Zaku grinned. Still carrying around that broken sword of yours I see. I wouldn't be talking right now, Sasuke retorted, Sharingan eyes drifting to his artificial hand. Zaku snarled, and lifted it up, palm outstretched. Die! A powerful air blast issued from the metal hand, Sasuke dodging to the left. Zaku cursed and slammed his hand down, generating a sonic wave through the stone that shook the floor violently. Sasuke leapt and used chakra to stick to a wall, and leaped out of the way once again as Zaku fired another air blast, putting a decent-sized crater where he'd stuck seconds before. Too slow. Sasuke taunted, bouncing off another wall and flying for Zaku, kunai in his hand. The Sound Ninja blocked the strike with his metal hand and tried to fire off an air blast at point-blank range, which Sasuke made go wild by punching Zaku and kicking off him. The spectators on the right catwalk, and the Hokage, raised their arms to shield their eyes from the air burst. Gah! Come on Sasuke, beat this guy already. Naruto growled. Both Sakura and Ino seemed to consider cheering Sasuke on, but seemed to think better of it. Sasuke landed, skidding as not all of Zaku's last attack had gone in the wrong direction. The Uchiha grimaced as he felt a twitch on the back of his neck, but ignored it. He ran forward, performing a one-handed cartwheel to avoid Zaku's next blast. Give it up, pretty boy. I can do this all day. How long can you keep up? Zaku taunted, focusing another air blast at Sasuke, which he dodged again. How long until you actually hit me? Sasuke retorted with a smirk. Zaku snarled and fired an air blast with both hands, wide angle. There was no chance the Uchiha could escape now, and Zaku grinned as he saw the Uchiha be slammed against the wall, and turn into a log. Zaku snarled and spun around, expecting an attack from behind. Only to feel a kick in the back of his head. That was an old trick, Sasuke smirked, crouching and punting Zaku into the air. He leapt after, getting above. This is too. But from here on out, it's all original. Sasuke kicked Zaku to the side, twirling in mid-air above him to deliver another to his other side, before using the momentum of that last hit to spin himself into an axe kick. Sure Renden. The Uchiha shouted, sending the Sound Nin crashing to the stone floor below. Zaku snarled and rolled onto his side, trying to get his metal hand up and ready to fire before his opponent could land. But Sasuke saw this through the Sharingan and spun, getting down to the ground next to Zaku before the blast connected. Zaku screamed as Sasuke slammed his kunai into his metal hand, the energy buildup of his next blast already taking place. You idiot! You'll kill us both. Zaku screamed, but it was too late. The hand glowed bright blue, and Sasuke barely had enough time to use another replacement jutsu before it exploded, casting a massive amount of dust into the air. Sasuke reappeared outside the blast zone, grimacing as he held his side. He looked down at his hand and blinked. Since when do I wear gloves? To the spectators, Uchiha Sasuke's blue and white outfit had seemed to turn dark black, the outline of a cloak flowing behind him, his hair seemed to grow longer. And then he was back to normal, gawking at his hand. The smoke cleared, and he turned at the sound of a groan. He glared coldly at the down-sound genin, staring in horrified agony at his mangled arm. Everything below his elbow had been blown apart, leaving everything else an ugly, blackened ruin. He tried to get up, but collapsed, eyes rolling into the back of his head. Heiei came near, bent down, and checked Zaku. He then rose and turned to Sasuke. "Winner, Uchiha Sasuke," he spoke. Sasuke rose and turned, looking up at the catwalk. He spotted Rock Lee, who was staring at him in shock. Sasuke bowed in appreciation, before going back up the steps to the upper level. "Amazing! He only saw me do it once, and he was able to copy it perfectly. So that is your special ability. You really are something, Sasuke. You just keep getting stronger all the time. You make me, almost, a little nervous," Lee thought, gaze firmly locked onto the Uchiha as he ascended the stairs. Kakashi was standing at the top, lone eye narrowed. "Come on, we're getting you checked out, now," Kakashi stated. Sasuke narrowed his eyes back at his sensei. "What? The seal didn't dash." "No, but something happened, and I'm not taking any chances," the Jounin said harshly. With a scowl Sasuke nodded, turning to look at Naruto and Sakura further down on the catwalk. Naruto just stared at him pensively, while Sakura smiled, though even Sasuke could tell it was strained. He nodded to them both with an apathetic face as Kakashi led him into a passage connected to the catwalk. Heiei cleared his throat and got everyone's attention again. "Right. Next match, on the screen now. Shino Aburame and Tsurugi Misumi." The trenchcoat and sunglasses wearing genin calmly descended the stone stairs to the arena floor, while the third member of Kabuto's cell simply leaped down. The two stared at each other for a time, before Misumi laughed. "This is it. This is my opponent. A pitiful, first-year bug user. This won't last 5 minutes," he grinned behind his mask. Shino made no response, only nodding to the proctor as he approached. "Ha! Bug user?" Naruto asked, scratching his head. "What does that mean? Ha! Don't you know anything, dead last?" jeered Kiba. Naruto glared at him, and the Inuzuka merely smirked and shook his head. "You'll see, dumbass, you'll see," Kiba finished, as Akamaru barked in agreement. Hinata poked her fingers together, looking at Naruto apologetically, to which he smiled before turning back to the arena. Heiei looked at the two fighters, nodded, and said begin. He then backed away. Misumi wasted no time, leaping right at Shino and wrapping himself around him. His limbs stretched in bizarre and disturbing ways, until he resembled a boa constrictor around a tiny mouse. "Shino-kun!" Hinata cried out. Shino did not even look fazed, as Misumi chuckled, head stretched next to his opponent's ear. "So, Aburame, ready to call it quits? Or shall I squeeze the life out of you?" Shino raised his eyebrows. "It is entirely possible you could have defeated me right at the start," Shino began in his usual, calm monotone. "However, this match is mine." Misumi laughed mockingly. "Oh? How do you figure, HM?" Shino did not answer. He merely began to disintegrate. Misumi's eyes widened in surprise as his hostage became a mass of black insects, which soon covered him, biting and stinging. "Oh! Off! Oh God, get them off me! Get them off me!" The real Shino calmly walked out of the shadow of the catwalk, watching his Kikai insects continue to swarm over Misumi. "I created a Kikai bunshin and hid it in the shadows as I walked down the stairs," Shino explained, as though discussing the weather. "I know of your clan's bloodline, Tsurugi. Using chakra to separate your joints and manipulate your bodies for maximum flexibility. I correctly deduced that your first move would be to try and capture me. What are they doing to me? Misumi screamed. "Draining your chakra, and injecting you with their venom, which will soon paralyze you," Shino stated calmly. Misumi's eyes rolled into the back of his head and he fell in an unconscious heap on the floor. The Kikai swarm took off and flew back to Shino, diving into his jacket. Heiei coughed. Winner, Aburame Shino. Lee gawked in disbelief. Whoa, wait. How did he do that? He turned to Niji. Find out. Byakugan. Niji muttered, veins bulging around his gray eyes as his bloodline activated. He grimaced. I thought he was using a summoning jutsu for all those insects, but they actually live inside him. The Hyuga narrowed his amazing eyes. He's filled with insects, so this is the work of the Aburame clan. Gruesome, yet effective, he thought, hand unconsciously twitching to go up and feel his caged bird seal living inside him. Lee asked, jaw dropped. Naruto gazed in awe as Shino approached. Nice job, Shino, Kiba complimented with a grin. See, congratulations, Shino-kun, Hinata stuttered only a little. Kurenai smiled at him. Excellent work, imparted the Genjutsu mistress. The Aburame merely nodded politely. Wow! That was so cool. Naruto enthused. I mean, sure, no explosions but still. Sakura made a face nearby. Ugh. He gives me the creeps. All those bugs. Sabaka no Kankuro, and Akimichi Chuji, please come down. Heiei called, coughing a little after that. Aw nuts. Chuji groaned. Kankuro grinned predatorily and leapt to the arena floor. Ino smirked. Hey, relax Chuji. You took out one of those demons in the forest. Naruto grinned and gave his friend a thumbs up. Yeah. That pajama-wearing freak doesn't have a prayer against you. Squish him flat. Chuji frowned. You implying anything by that, Naruto? The Akimichi asked, narrowing his eyes. The blonde ninja gulped and smiled nervously. Nothing. Nothing. Yeah, he's not calling you fat. That's my job, Ino smirked. Chuji growled. Grr. Damn it, I'm not fat. I'm big-boned. With that, the heavy-set shinobi leapt to the floor, landing in a crouch. Kankuro smirked. You wanna take me on tubby? The sand ninja taunted. Go home and eat some cake, fat ass. This is a place for ninjas. Ino, Shikamaru, Asuma, and Naruto all winced. They knew just how furious Chuji got when someone made fun of his weight. Now, Ino did it and meant it only in fun, and a twisted sort of affection, but when someone meant it in a clearly hostile way. Tubby? That's it, you're going down asshole. Nikuden Sensha. Chuji expanded into his massive, boulder-like form and accelerated for Kankuro, who just stood there and continued to smirk. What the? Why is that guy just standing there? Ino wondered. Naruto frowned, the keyblade seeming to wish to leap into his grasp. Ha! What's he doing? Something's wrong about this, Shikamaru murmured, eyes narrowed. Tenten and Sakura nearby stared as Chuji reached maximum speed and collided with Kankuro. The leaf ninja came to a dead stop. The hell? Naruto gasped. Every Konoha ninja, including most of the Jounin, gawked in disbelief as Kankuro held Chuji back with two hands, but no other obvious effort. Kankuro grinned and pulled back one of his fists, before ramming it deep into Chuji's mass. Ugh! Chuji bellowed as an electrical current flowed through his body. Kankuro's grin widened. You're screwed, Tubby. His eye seemed to fracture, before exploding outwards, revealing a mechanical eye. Holy shit! He's a cyborg! Naruto shouted, summoning the Keyblade. Ino's own eyes widened, but for a slightly different reason. More aliens? I don't think so, Kakashi noted, as the rest of Kankuro's skin and clothing came apart, revealing a brown-skinned, mechanical monstrosity that vaguely resembled a multi-armed human. A whir of motors and two more arms pulled back, before plunging into Chuji's hide again. Son of a dash. Chuji's curse was cut short as his jutsu was dispelled, leaving him lying on his back on the arena floor, looking dizzy. The bundle on the thing's back unwrapped itself, becoming the real Kankuro. He smirked, holding up his hands. Idiot! What the hell is that thing, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto demanded. Kakashi looked thoughtful. It's a ninja puppet. Puppet? Kakashi rolled his eyes. It's like a robot that fights for him. He controls it with chakra strings, manipulating them to make the puppet move. Looks like this puppet is equipped with a taser weapon, as well as motors to enhance its strength and... That venom should be paralyzing you nicely right about now, Kankuro went on with a smirk. Kakashi shrugged at Naruto's raised eyebrow. Surrender, and I'll give you the anti-venom, Kankuro offered, holding up a bottle. But make it quick. Kurasu's poison progresses quickly. Chuji snarled, but nodded weakly. Hayate sighed. Winner, Kankuro. The Jounin called, as the medic ninjas quickly got to the poison genin, stretcher in hand. Naruto frowned as he saw Kankuro smirk and walk off, puppet in his hand, as he tossed the antidote carelessly to one of the medics. The ninja caught it, shooting a glare at the puppeteer's back. So that's what that thing was. Hey, Kakashi-sensei. Isn't that against the rules? 2-on-1, I mean, he asked. Kakashi frowned, a bit more concerned with the fact Naruto sensed his return than the question. But, in order to deflect the odd looks being sent his way, he decided to handle the question. Says the boy who can make an army of himself, Sakura snorted. Kakashi I smiled. Good girl, Sakura. What? That's a ninja technique. That there was. Oh never mind, the blonde huffed, dejected. Shikamaru frowned, arms across his chest, as Ino watched her sensei consult with the med-nins, biting her lower lip. Well? Kakashi asked Asuma as he returned to the observation deck. The son of the third Hokage sighed and lit up a new cigarette. The antidote was delivered in time. Much longer and Chuji's lungs would have stopped working. Asuma looked over at the sand ninja across the arena, frowning thoughtfully. A tall sand jounin with his head wrapped in gauze and the right half of his face covered in white cloth, stared back impassively. He'd just better not run into me in the next round, Naruto snarled. Shikamaru was silent but nodded his assent. Ino tightened her grip on her staff, and felt her chakra shape itself to cast lightning within it as she caught Kankuro's smirk. The puppeteer winked and blew a mocking kiss. Trust me, Whiskers, I face him and there won't be enough pieces left of him to fill a paper bag, Ino hissed, sparks seemingly shooting from her eyes. Naruto and Shikamaru stared at her, and felt the killing intent of her barely restrained wrath. Sakura scooted a few steps away from her former best friend and current rival. Damn, am I glad she's not mad at me, Naruto muttered. Shikamaru nodded, just a little faster than he would normally. His attention went back to the display board. Naruto frowned. Come on, when's it going to be my turn? Do not worry, Naruto. Lee boomed. Our time will come. Let us hope it is towards the end, though. Thus, we will be the closing act. Naruto grinned. That'd be awesome, Lee. But, I'm still hoping to go next. Naruto trailed off as the next match was announced. He looked uneasily to either side of himself. Yamanaka Ino, and Haruno Sakura, please come down for your match. Hayate announced. Chapter 18, Preliminaries, a look back. Point 2. Donald. Sorry to rush off without saying goodbye, but there's big trouble brewing. More and more stars have been blinking out, one by one. And that means disaster can't be far behind. I hate to leave you all, but I've gotta go check into it. There's someone with a key, the key to our survival, like mine. So I need you and Goofy to find him, and stick with him. Got it? We need that key or we're doomed. So go to Traverse Town and find Leon. He'll point you in the right direction. P.S. Would ya apologize to Minnie for me? Thanks pal, Minnie finished reading, a frown on her face. She sighed and shook her head, turning and pacing a few steps to face one of the vast bookshelves in the castle library. Behind her, Donald and Goofy stood at attention, a few animated brooms sweeping and cleaning behind them. Oh. I knew he was going to leave, Minnie sighed. He was always stubborn, insistent on going his own way. And with the stars winking out and all this unusual activity, Goofy frowned. Your Majesty, don't worry. We'll find him, and bring him back, I promise. Yeah. I'm sure if we find this key, whoever it is, we'll find the king. Donald added. Minnie sighed again, turning back. I know you will. But you have to remember that, well, finding Mickey is not your primary mission. Daisy frowned, hands held in front of her. Your Majesty. What do you mean? The female duck asked. Minnie smiled, a bit sadly. I mean that, while you two may find the king on your journeys, your first priority is to find this key as he wants. But, Your Majesty dash. Began Donald in protest, but was silenced by a look from Daisy. The duck gulped and smiled nervously. I mean, he means, Goofy cut in, that we'll do both. Find the king, and this key he was talking about. The knight smiled reassuringly, and Donald nodded, standing a bit straighter. Minnie smiled and nodded as well. Excellent. But, before you set out, I'm going to send someone with you, the Mouse Queen said. She turned to her desk. Jiminy, a small, gray-green cricket with shiny spats, elegant top hat, and neat suit appeared, hopping out from the various documents and books on the desk. He stood at attention. Yes, Queen Minnie, I'd like you to accompany Donald and Goofy, and act as their chronicler, Minnie explained. Record their adventures and keep them on track. The cricket smiled and bowed, one hand taking his top hat off his head. It'll be an honor, Your Majesty. Jiminy put his hat back on and leapt off the desk, hopping up to Donald and landing on his shoulder. The duck mage smiled a bit before turning back to the Queen. Don't worry about a thing, Your Majesty. We'll be back before you know it. Now Donald, Daisy spoke, you will be careful out there, right? The duck grinned back at his girlfriend. When am I not? A stern look on Daisy's face made Donald chuckle nervously. I mean, of course I'll be careful. Then it's settled, Minnie said, satisfied. You leave immediately. Queen Minnie? Goofy asked. Minnie turned to the captain of their knights and smiled. Yes, Goofy, hate to ask a favor and all, but could you keep an eye on Maxie for me? Goofy inquired, looking more serious than he usually did. He's just started his trainin' and all, and well. Don't worry, Goofy, Minnie reassured him. He'll be just fine. Goofy nodded at this and smiled, before standing at attention and saluting. Thanks, Your Majesty. Now then, shall we go to the hangar now? Minnie asked. Everyone ready? Nods all around, the troop headed out of the library and towards the Gumi ship hangar. Now, this was only the castle's hangar. The Disney fleet had several more for even larger ships that made up the world's exploration and defensive forces. But, what it lacked in size, it made up for in the quality of its engineering crew. Darn it, Dale, that compression block is not supposed to go there, shouted a high-pitched voice. A slightly scratchier voice answered him. Yeah. Well, what's with that weapons loadout? You trying to make it a sitting duck for every heartless ship out there? Hey! Daisy and Donald shouted, eyes narrowed. The control tower near the top of the hangar had two chipmunks poke their heads out. Sorry about that. The chipmunk with a small black nose called out. He glared at his companion. A certain someone wanted to be more of an idiot than he usually is. The chipmunk with a red nose and pronounced buck teeth scowled back. Well, if a certain chipmunk who has a really stupid name to match his stupid brain weren't such a jerk dash. Guys, shouted a third voice, this time female. It belonged to a pale-furred mouse in blue coveralls with long blonde hair held out of her eyes by goggles. She scowled at the two chipmunks, who looked at their feet. Sorry, Gadget, they said in unison. The mouse sighed and rolled her eyes. Besides, the compression block actually goes there, Gadget pointed out on a computer screen in the control room. And the weapons loadout doesn't matter with this power output. Oops, my mistake, the power output is too high. Maybe if I adjusted the particle flow. Hey! Donald shouted irritably. Gadget and the chipmunks looked back. Oh, sorry about that, did you need something? Gadget asked cheerfully. Donald turned and raised a feathery eyebrow at the Queen, who smiled good-naturedly. Just a ship. Kingdom class, long-range reconnaissance loadout, the Queen ordered. Long-duration mission, huh? Asked Dale, as Chip worked with Gadget at the control console. On the screen before the two rodent engineers, a red and yellow spaceship took shape. We don't know how long it might last, Minnie said honestly. Donald and Goofy exchanged looks. Chip and Dale looked at each other and frowned. Meaning you'll need 2 engineers for this, Chip surmised. Dale grinned and raised a hand excitedly. I'll go. Me? I'm great for long-term missions. Don't you have a date with Foxglove this Friday? Chip asked, exasperated at his friend's lack of organization. Dale slapped his forehead and groaned. Oh yeah. Oops, the red-nosed chipmunk chuckled. Well, guess it'll be you and Gadget for this one then. Try to stay focused on the job, huh? Dale grinned with a wink, making both Mouse and Chipmunk blush. Hey! Enough already! Donald shouted. Considering how you could get when we were first dating, Donald, I don't think you should be talking, Daisy pointed out with a smirk. The mage duck flushed a bit under his feathers, finally folding his arms over his chest and scowling. Finally, the Gumi ship was assembled to specifications, and was soon brought out, carried by huge robotic arms with white gloves covering their mechanical hands. Donald and Goofy jumped into the open cockpit, soon followed by Pluto. "Your Majesty, are you sure we should bring him along?" Donald asked, grimacing a bit as the yellow dog happily licked his cheek. Goofy grinned a bit as Minnie and Daisy laughed. "Of course. He'll lead you to the king all the more quickly," the Queen declared. "If he doesn't lick me to death first," Donald grumbled. Below, Gadget and Chip had entered the relatively small engine room of the Gyumi ship, quickly and efficiently running through the pre-flight checklist. "Power block, stable," Chip called out, strapping himself in. "Shields online, interspace drive powering up," Gadget added from the seat next to his. Goofy closed the cockpit canopy, as he and Donald sat in their own seats and strapped in. Donald turned on the navigation console and grabbed the joysticks of the vessel, checking over the readings he was being fed from the ship's computers. Minnie and Daisy waved goodbye, as did Dale from the control room above, which the crew of the Gyumi ship returned, as a pair of robotic arms picked the ship up and moved it to the runway. "Bay doors open!" Dale shouted through the communications system, making Chip and Gadget wince. "Dale, turn your volume down." Chip ordered angrily. "Turn what down?" Dale asked. Chip rolled his eyes. "I said, turn your volume down." Dale scratched his head, translating through the feedback as best he could. He thought they'd want to leave the castle via the runway, but if they wanted to go down. Sure Chip. "No problem." Good luck," called out Minnie and Daisy. Donald gave them a confident smile as he gripped the controls, Goofy saluting and Pluto just howling, as the main engines powered up and the runway lights came on, just in time for a large hatch to open underneath the ship, and the robotic arms holding it to let go. "Wah wah wah!" Donald screamed. "Yeah wee wah wah wee!" Goofy yelped. "Dale, you idiot!" Chip and Gadget shouted, as the Gyumi ship fell. Queen and her lady-in-waiting turned and looked up at Dale, who scratched the back of his head sheepishly. I thought he said he wanted to go down, eh?" "Oh well," Queen Minnie sighed. "They're on their way. For better or worse. We're so doomed," Daisy mumbled. Back in Konoha, within the tower, Haruno Sakura faced off against her current rival, and former best friend, Yamanaka Ino. The two kunoichi stared at each other, eyes narrowed, tension so thick it felt like the very air was boiling between them. Naruto bit his lower lip, his grip on the keyblade tightening. "This is so troublesome," Shikamaru muttered. "They'd start a war over that asshole." "That asshole's my friend, though I have to agree with you," Naruto mumbled next to him. Shikamaru frowned. "Friend? Are you high on something? Look, it's not like we're best buds or anything, but we do understand each other." At Shikamaru's incredulous look, Naruto shrugged. "It's complicated. Uchiha Sasuke, the most arrogant bastard in this village, and you consider him your friend? You know, you're really making this more troublesome than it should be," Naruto smirked. Shikamaru rolled his eyes and set his eyes back on the match. "Just let me know when you're no longer completely insane," the Nara grumbled. "I'm not complete yet," Naruto snickered. "Are they going to fight, or just stand there?" Kiba growled. "Come on. Let's see some torn clothes already, pervert!" screamed both Ino and Sakura. The killing intent from the two females made Kiba cringe. As did the punch to his head from an irritated Kurenai. "Ow! Sensei!" Kurenai huffed while crossing her arms over her chest. "Your mother would do much worse if she learned about this," the Genjutsu mistress warned, making Kiba pale. "Look Ino, I just want to make sure you know that this is not going to be over Sasuke," Sakura said at last, confident smirk appearing on her face. Ino sighed, shaking her head with a disgusted expression. "Is that it? Is that your whole reason for all of this?" Sakura gaped, taken aback. What? What are you talking about, Ino pig?" Sakura's gloved fists tightened. Ino smirked and shook her head. "You never really grew up, did you, forehead? You were always in that fantasy world, thinking that if you were with Sasuke-kun, then everything would work out. Isn't that what you believed?" Ino couldn't help her nostalgia. She saw that same lost look again in Sakura's eyes, that same self-doubt. It was so familiar. It hurt to know this time she was responsible for it. But this. Ino knew she had to do it. Ever since she'd heard what happened in the Forest of Death, seen what had happened to Team 7. "This is for your own good, for Sakura." Sakura began, but Ino cut her off. "You are not a ninja, Sakura. You are a little girl playing a very dangerous game, and if you do not stop it right now, you are going to get yourself and the rest of your team killed. So you just need to give up and go home, Ino said, as calmly as she could manage. She could see Sakura's face blossoming red in anger. I am not a little girl. You don't get it. As much as I hate to say it, Sasuke is not worth it. Ino shouted. Sakura snarled, hand going to her pouch. She let loose with 3 kunai, which Ino deflected with her steel and force staff. The blonde snarled. Fine, we'll do this the hard way. Ino charged for Sakura, who used a bunshin jutsu to create several decoys. Ino swung her staff through several of the illusions and then ducked to avoid a punch from the real one, kicking out to knock the pink-haired girl off her feet. Sakura dodged into a forward roll, a kunai out as she sprang back to her feet and spun around to slam the knife into her opponent's side. Ino blocked this as well, twirling her staff around for Sakura's head. Sakura sidestepped, grabbing the staff to guide the momentum and trip Ino. But she drew her hand back with a cry of pain as she felt an electric shock, which was just long enough for Ino to slam the staff into her gut. Oof! Sakura fell back, but Ino wasn't done yet. She held her staff up, eyes glowing very slightly. Thunder! Lightning crackled from Ino's staff, blasting into Sakura and sending her flying. Naruto gaped above. Sakura-chan. Ugh, the pink-haired girl groaned, pushing herself to her feet. Ino smirked just a little. So? Ready to give up? Give up. Give up. Sakura-chan, don't give up. Don't listen to her. I know you can do it. You can beat her. Naruto shouted, leaning over the railing. Sakura took a shaky breath, and looked up. She gave Ino a feral smile. Not even close. Sakura leapt forward with surprising speed, getting inside Ino's guard and slamming a palm into her chest. Ino fell back in shock, but recovered, a kick sent to Sakura's stomach in retaliation. Sakura stepped back, twisting to her left to deliver a fist to Ino's jaw. Ino took the hit but was smirking as she did. The reason became obvious. Thunder, she murmured, jaw unbroken by her instinctive relaxation against the impact. Her staff issued another blast, sending Sakura off her feet and falling back once more, ending up on her backside. The pink-haired girl was breathing hard, hair falling over her eyes. You just don't get it, do you, Sakura? If I was an enemy, you'd already be dead, Ino snarled. Give up. Shut up, Ino. Naruto shouted. Come on, Sakura-chan, you can do it. Get back up. You can do it. Don't give up. You can't give up. The blonde gritted his teeth, his keyblade gleaming in the light. Ino glared at him, and he glared back. As they did, Naruto felt odd. He saw, as though someone's senses were superimposed over his own. Sunlight. A ribbon. 2 girls. Fear for someone, almost paralyzing. Give up before I lose you. Ino blinked, shaking her head. What was that? I saw a fox. A little boy. Yah! Ino grimaced, blocking Sakura's combo. Her kicks were stronger, her punches faster, and the light in her eyes. Ino kneeled under a high kick and knocked Sakura off her feet again, focusing and swinging her staff around to slam her into the floor. Sakura gasped as Ino held the staff against her throat, pale blue eyes meeting vivid green. Give up, Ino snarled. Give up right now, damn it. Screw you. Sakura screamed, legs bending up and slamming her knees into Ino's back. Ino grunted as Sakura shoved her staff back, finally chambering one leg and kicking her off the pink-haired girl. Sakura recovered and leapt back up, charging Ino while making 3 more bunshins to run interference. Ino attacked the wrong one and the real Sakura leapt up, diving and tackling her blonde opponent to the floor. Ino swung her staff at Sakura, which she avoided by somersaulting forward, back on her feet as soon as her opponent was. A staff swing was blocked by Sakura as she dropped, kicking at Ino's stomach. The blonde fell back and struck again with a hammer blow from her staff, which Sakura blocked again. But it was intentional. Ino moved forward within Sakura's guard and slammed her fist into her face, sending her stumbling back. Sakura retaliated with a jump kick, Ino barely bracing her against her staff as it slammed into her chest. The pink-haired kunoichi dropped down and backhanded Ino, an audible smack, filling the arena. Ino went down, tumbling on her side. Fire! The blonde girl shouted in anger, unleashing a deadly flame blast at her opponent. Sakura leaped out of the way, throwing 3 more kunai. As she stood back up, Ino directed more chakra into her staff and spun it, unconsciously emulating Naruto with his keyblade to deflect the knives. This chakra she reshaped into another thunder spell and let it loose, wide angle. Sakura was hit again, but managed to stay standing. Damn it, at this rate, the pink-haired girl refused to finish that thought. But who knew Ino Pig had gotten so strong? Her inner self wondered. Sakura gritted her teeth. She's not the only one. I am not weak, I'm not giving up. Ino breathed hard, eyes narrowed. I could take her out in one shot. But then I'd have to. I'm not doing that. There's got to be. That's it, you're nearly out of chakra, Sakura. Last chance to give up, Ino warned her. Sakura wheezed, but stood firm. What? Part of screw you, don't you understand? All that. Pretty hair, messing with your hearing? Sakura growled. Ino scowled, shoving her staff into its satchel behind her back. She drew a kunai in one hand, and her long, shining brain in the other. Sakura could only gape as Ino slashed her hair off, and threw it to the ground. Wah! What the hell was that? Sakura demanded. Ino smirked and quickly made several hand seals. A distraction. Shintenshin no Jutsu. Sakura's world went dark, a black void stretching as far as she could see in all directions. She was frozen, unable to move, hear, or feel anything. Just an overwhelming chill. What? What's going on? Beats me, her inner self said. The silence was deafening. Except for a small, distant-sounding voice. It was her own. I give up, she said. Sakura's eyes widened. What the? No. No, I don't. Stop. I'm not going to give up. You bitch, what the hell did you do to me? Yura-chan dash. Sakura blinked, looking around. Naruto. Sakura-chan. Sakura-chan. Naruto watched Ino fall to the ground as she completed her jutsu, and Sakura stiffen, as though struck by another lightning bolt. What the hell is she doing? Sakura-chan. Naruto turned to Kakashi. The hell kind of technique is that? One of the Yamanaka family jutsus, Shikamaru said flatly. Naruto turned to his friend and frowned. Ha! What the? It's a mind manipulation jutsu, Kakashi stated. It lets the user take over their opponent's body. I surrender, Sakura said dully, turning to the proctor. Naruto gaped. What? Sakura-chan. What the hell are you doing? It's over, Sakura said, turning to Naruto with a glare. She pulled off her headband and dropped it on the heart-stone floor. The blonde couldn't help it and glared right back. Sakura-chan, fight it. Don't give up, damn it. Will you stop it? Ino screamed through Sakura. She's weak, she's useless. She is going to get you and her dumbass killed. No, she won't. Naruto bellowed back. She doesn't look like it, she doesn't act like it sometimes, but Sakura-chan's a lot stronger than you think she is. She just needs to prove it. She'll never change. She's still the same weak little girl. Ino shouted. No, she isn't. She can change. Come on, Sakura, snap out of it. Is this a surrender or not? Hayate asked. Haruno Sakura, Ino began, but was interrupted. Don't stop the match. Damn it, Sakura-chan, fight it. Prove that you're not weak. That you can change. Hinata couldn't help but watch and listen, and felt her heart skip a beat. Naruto-kun. He believes that. That people can change? Within Sakura's mind, she felt something grow, a warmth that spread from her chest, becoming stronger as Naruto's shouts became louder. I am not weak. I am not weak. I am not weak. Hell yeah, we're not. Inner Sakura chimed in. Come on, Sakura, let's show this bitch what we can do. She's going down. With a rush, every sense returned to her. Vision, hearing, pain. I am not giving up. Sakura roared, as her aura flared into being around her. As though she was being consumed by blue flames, it grew, wind gushing out from where she stood. The third Hokage stared in disbelief, as did nearly everyone else in the arena. Hokage-sama, what kind of power is that? Asked one of his ANBU. It's such violent chakra. No, the Hokage thought, not chakra. It could pass as chakra, but Sarutobi knew what this was. So, the girl has access to Maleficent's type of power? Kabuto mused, a small smile on his face. Interesting. Seems there's more to you than I thought, Sakura-san. Ino, her technique dispelled, got to her feet and gaped in disbelief. You have another you inside you. And that power? What the hell are you? Che, Sakura sneered, every girl needs a heart center if they're going to survive in this world. But this power? That, I have no idea where it came from, she thought. Inner me, what is this? Not that I'm complaining, but, don't ask me. I just found this deep inside us. Some kind of source. I'd have never found it if Naruto didn't yell at us. Guess the idiot did something right for once. Try, for the most recent time, inner Sakura stated. Sakura scowled. Fine, fine. Later, Sakura dismissed her inner self, holding up a hand and watching the power flare around her. In my heart, she began, eyes narrowed at Ino, stooping to pick it up and tie it back around her brow, where it belonged, and in this headband, I will live on as my own person. She flew forward, using her chakra control to focus this power. Whatever it was. Into her fist for a final charge. I am not Sakura the fangirl. I am Sakura the kunoichi. Then prove it. Ino roared, staff raised as she ran to meet Sakura's charge, lightning crackling from the weapon. They met, Ino's staff crashing onto Sakura's head while Sakura's fist met Ino's face. The forces they wielded came in contact with each other and reacted into a violent explosion, obscuring the arena floor with a flash of light and cloud of smoke and debris. Holy dash! Kakashi, what have you been teaching that girl? Asuma bellowed. Me? I'm not the one with a girl throwing lightning and fire around like they were toys. Kakashi returned. When the dust settled, both girls were sprawled, unconscious on the arena floor. Naruto moved to check on them, but Kakashi put a hand out to stop him. He grimaced. Kakashi-sensei dash. Wait, Kakashi spoke, and Naruto complied, though grudgingly. The medic ninja and Hayate moved out, checking on both ragged-looking girls. The proctor finally rose and, after a cough, spoke to the arena. Both fighters are unconscious. A double knockout. Both fighters are eliminated. Whoa! Wasn't expecting that outcome, Naruto commented. And no torn clothes. Lamest cat fight ever, Kiba muttered. He cringed at his teacher's flash of killing intent. Naruto smiled as the medic Nines, after checking the two girls over thoroughly, brought Sakura and Ino back to the observation deck. They were set side by side, leaning upright against the wall, and Naruto crouched down, waiting for one to wake up. Ino cracked her eyes open slightly, and blinked. He blinked back at her. Who? She began. Naruto shrugged. Tai. Double knockout. Technical terms a cross-counter, Kakashi observed dryly as he passed them by, sparing an eye smile to the still-out Sakura. You've grown a lot, Sakura. Naruto's not the only one full of surprises. You were right. Ino mumbled, attention back on Naruto. He smiled a bit. We both were. Doing things for the right reasons, I think, he said back. Ino blinked again. Staff? Naruto grimaced. You broke it, Naruto sighed. Ino groaned. Stupid invincible forehead. It did cause an explosion though, Naruto added with a foxy grin. That was cool. Ino rolled her eyes but smiled all the same. Her eyes widened a little as Sakura slumped onto her shoulder, slowly waking up. Gyuichi. What happened? She mumbled. Unconsciously she pushed her face against Ino's shoulder a bit more. Naruto couldn't help but laugh at how cute it was, and how red the blonde's face turned. Hey, forehead, Ino spoke, but without any of her previous anger. Sakura blinked and looked up at Ino, then at the laughing Naruto. She pushed herself back quickly, eyes wide and cheeks burning in embarrassment. What the dash? Did I dash? Che. I can't believe I tied, with you of all people. Ino said in a stern voice, turning up her nose. She winked at Naruto, which made it difficult for him to rein in his laughter, but he tried. Sakura frowned, eyes downcast once more. Before feeling her hand being squeezed comfortingly. It's so familiar. She looked up to see a gently smiling Ino. I was wrong. You have grown up, her blonde, former best friend said quietly. You've blossomed into a lovely flower. Sakura smiled back, almost shyly. As Ino withdrew her hand, Sakura looked down and blinked. My. Her old ribbon. I hope you'll accept it back? Ino asked, a hint of vulnerability appearing in her usually confident eyes. Sakura smiled, and clutched the pink scrap of fabric tightly. I'd like that. Sakura suddenly became aware of Naruto watching them. She snarled, Naruto! Go away! This is for girls only. Oh? I can become a girl, you know, will you let me stay then? Naruto asked with a grin. Whack! Yow! Pervert! Shouted both girls as Naruto beat a hasty retreat, though both were smiling as they watched him seek sanctuary with Team Guy at the far end of the catwalk. You know, he's not really all that bad, Ino commented. Sakura smirked. Oh ho! Giving up on Sasuke for the dead last then? Ino looked thoughtful and serious, which just made Sakura stare, then laugh nervously. I mean, come on, there's no way you could give up on Sasuke-kun for Naruto. Right? Right? I mean, what could you see in him? Actually shut up you. Ino just turned back to Sakura and smiled serenely. Sakura growled, what the hell is that smile for? Ino pig, damn it, say something. This isn't funny. Oh yes it is, Ino giggled. You're so cute when you're worked up, forehead. Shut up Ino pig. The girls' argument continued all throughout Shikamaru's match, which he was secretly grateful for. It distracted his opponent, the mummy-like Dosu, long enough for him to get a shadow bind on him and make the sound ninja slam his head against the wall. Well, those two came in handy, for once, Shikamaru muttered, walking back up to the catwalk as the proctor declared him the victor. Wow Shikamaru, you took that guy out fast. Naruto complimented. The Nara shrugged. Dragging it out would be troublesome, I know. Why do you say that all the time anyway? Because it's accurate, Shikamaru replied. And I wouldn't be talking about catchphrases if I were you. Ha! What do you mean? Naruto asked, confused. Shikamaru just rolled his eyes. Never mind. Look, you're up next. Naruto turned and eyed the display board. He frowned, and looked over at his opponent. Kabuto simply smiled benignly back, and dropped to the arena floor. Naruto mentally shrugged and followed, Keyblade already out. Alright, my turn finally. This is going to kick ass. Kabuto smirked just a little as the proctor came between himself and Naruto. A casual glance out of the corner of his eyes confirmed that Orochimaru, disguised as an Otogekure Jounin, was watching intently. All the better. Ready, begin. Height spoke, stepping clear. Naruto assumed a fighting stance, Keyblade extended. Kabuto merely stayed still. Naruto-kun, before we begin, if I could ask you a question. He began innocently enough. Naruto frowned and nodded. Sure. Where exactly did you get that Keyblade again? Kabuto poised, head tilting ever so slightly. Naruto blinked and shrugged, still smiling. Family heirloom. It was the last thing they left me. The only thing, actually, he lied. Kabuto nodded thoughtfully. It's interesting. I seem to remember reading something about that, Kabuto mused, seemingly half to himself, half to the blonde genin before him. Above, Kakashi frowned, as did the Hokage from his box seat. What? What did you read? Asked Naruto curiously. Kabuto's mental smirk grew. Some kind of ancient weapon shaped like a giant key, it was said to give whoever held it great power. Virtually limitless, apparently, the glasses-wearing boy went on. Naruto became somewhat agitated. Limitless power, huh? Yes, Kabuto confirmed with a nod, although. He trailed off. Naruto frowned. Although? He prompted. After that, the rest becomes fragmented. Kabuto completed his thought. Fragmented? What do you mean? Naruto inquired. Sure, he'd heard the basic legend from the Hokage, but Kabuto seemed more knowledgeable, somehow. He knew about fake Keyblades, after all. Well, the reports were written a number of years ago, and only small words and phrases survive, Kabuto went on. Master of Keyblade. Chasers. Keyblade War. Birth by sleep. He paused, just long enough to catch Naruto's gaze, and peek a hint of anxiety under the surface of his deep blue eyes. Naruto felt a pulse in his brain at Kabuto's last words, a beautiful face and blue hair crossing his mind. He hissed at the migraine that sprung forth. And then it goes on to say that this Keyblade master went on to become a hero, a savior, who halted some kind of great calamity, Kabuto delivered. He then smirked ever so slightly. But the short silences between his sentences were clearly agitating the key bearer, just as Kabuto had hoped. And the tension and confusion growing around them wasn't bad either. In the very same fragment, it says that the Keyblade itself was the instrument by which the world was destroyed. Kabuto looked at Naruto with professional curiosity, but just the right hint of suspicion to direct the spotlight of attention on him. I just wonder which legend is true, he said quietly. Do you have any idea? Naruto felt an intense feeling of déjà vu. He felt put upon the spot, something telling him that every eye in the arena was focused on him in curiosity, and some in suspicion. He felt a bead of sweat drip down his forehead, yet he wasn't sure why he was so tense, why the Keyblade was urging him to attack. I mean, since you have that giant key and all, an heirloom of your family. I thought you might know something about it. I'm afraid I don't know, Naruto got out in an even voice and stopped rubbing his temples. I'm not one for legends. He then grinned. Because I intend to be one of my own. Kabuto shrugged, drawing one of his ninja info cards. Funny that. I have this card on your father, rather a great warrior, it mentions nothing about any key. Naruto's eyes widened. You? My father? You? You know who he is? How? Proctor, please direct the fighters to begin, the Hokage's aged but strong voice called out. Kabuto glanced at the Hokage, before looking back at Naruto, brows raised. It looks like they don't want you to know. Kabuto suggested, inwardly grinning at the signs of betrayal already in Naruto's eyes. Naruto, quit blabbing and start fighting already. Sakura shouted. Come on Naruto. Tenten added. Funny that, what reason would they have to keep you down? Kabuto asked, small smile on his face. Naruto growled. They're not keeping me down. They just can't tell me until I'm a certain age. They promised. And anyways, how the hell do you know about my father? I think they made a promise to your father as well. Kabuto calmly returned, and Naruto snarled, ready to use his favorite jutsu against this bastard. Yakushi Kabuto. Say one more word and I will have you arrested for violating a Hokage's standing orders. Sarutobi shouted, the ANBU around him tensing, ready to attack at a single word. Kabuto merely closed his eyes and smiled. Yes. And that would be a messy court case, wouldn't it? All the evidence that would need to be admitted, and made public record. The Hokage bristled, as did every Leaf Jounin and ANBU there. Kabuto, either shut the hell up and fight, or I'm kicking your ass. Naruto shouted. Fine, Kabuto quipped, I quit. The hell? Naruto growled. Kabuto gave him that same eerie smile, even as the white-haired boy felt Orochimaru's killing intent being directed at him. I know enough when to fight and when not to. After all, there's more important things than violence, he spoke, glancing at the furious-looking Orochimaru. He turned to go, but looked over his shoulder at the seething Naruto. Good luck, kid. You're going to need it. He tossed back ominously. Winner, Uzumaki Naruto. Heiei declared, shrugging apologetically at the blonde genin, who turned and stormed back to the catwalk. Figures he'd need his opponent to surrender to actually win. Kiba barked in laughter, Akamaru yipping alongside. Hinata clutched her hands together, feeling anguished at the humiliation her crush had suffered. Naruto-kun. That bastard. How dare he taunt you like that? Hinata slapped her hands over her mouth, even though she'd only cursed in her mind. Naruto got back up to the observation level, trudging back down towards Sakura and Kakashi. Between him and there were teammate and a still laughing Kiba. Oh man, that was impressive. Kiba howled. You sure showed him, dead last. I wouldn't be surprised if Inazuka Kiba, Hyuga Niji, please come down for your match. The proctor announced. Kiba grinned. Alright Akamaru. Let's go Anjich. Kiba fell off the catwalk and crash-landed on the hard stone of the arena floor. Akamaru landed on top of him with a yip, looking back up in concern. Naruto, Shino, and Kurenai were meanwhile gawking in sheer disbelief at the blushing Hinata. Well, Shino's eyebrows just went up a whole lot, but for the stoic Aburame this may as well have been a scream. Sorry Kiba-kun. Hinata called out quietly. I tripped. No problem Hinata. Kiba called back. I'm okay. She looked back at her teammates and Crush and bowed in embarrassment. Sorry, I don't know, what came over me, and, well, Kurenai shook her head and sighed. Hinata. She gave her a small, grudging smile. Just don't make a habit out of it. Shino lowered his brows, and looked over at Naruto, who was still too shocked to speak. After a few moments, he smiled. Thank you, Hinata-chan, he said, and he meant it. Hinata just blushed even more furiously, but was able to maintain eye contact. The genuine, heartwarming appreciation in his eyes made it all worth it. Why? You're welcome, she got out quietly. Back with Sakura, Kakashi had turned to leave. The pink-haired girl frowned. Kakashi-sensei. Where are you going? I'm off to check on Sasuke. Don't worry, he's just fine. We're just running some additional tests, he answered, before poofing away. Sakura grimaced, but decided to try and distract herself by watching the upcoming match. She couldn't help but admire the way Hyuga Niji carried himself, a cool confidence in his steps as he walked down to face his opponent. Go Niji! Show him how your fires of youth shine. Guy cheered. Wosh. Go Niji! Lee added. Niji simply ignored the cheering, as the proctor looked between the stoic Hyuga and grinning Inuzuka. Ready? Begin, he stated, stepping clear. The Konoha hospital ward where Uchiha Sasuke was being kept was heavily guarded. A whole ANBU squad had been stationed outside and around the room, as the sedated Uchiha was carefully monitored and observed. Being the operative word. They were now all dead on the floor, easily wiped out by Kabuto. He stood in the room, looking thoughtfully at the unconscious Sasuke as his chest moved up and down, heart monitors beeping at a steady rhythm. Kabuto knew he'd been put under so that some of the more invasive medical techniques used to scan him would not inflict pain, or even cause death in some rare instances. It wasn't as if he would be a real threat to the white-haired genin if he was awake, but Kabuto occasionally welcomed a challenge, and so far his errand had been lacking. He recalled the words the Orochimaru he'd met outside the tower had said, after charging him to kidnap the Uchiha. Remember, Kabuto-kun. If you wish to stop me, you must kill Sasuke. He'd said he was kidding shortly after, but Kabuto knew better. The Sanin's motives were difficult to discern. Doubtless, he knew that Kabuto was not entirely as devoted as the rest of the Sound Village morons were. He probably knew of his connection to Maleficent. And yet, here he was, Orochimaru's prize in his reach. Helpless. In Kabuto's eyes, Orochimaru offered him the chance to explore life, death, and chakra in ways Konoha denied him. To toy with death, master it, manipulate it. Make it his servant. Maleficent, however. She saw that at the root of his double-dealing and inhumane pursuits, was true curiosity, a thirst for knowledge. She offered him the universe, to travel from world to world, explore every deep and dark secret hidden within the fabric of creation itself. Ultimate knowledge was ultimate power in Kabuto's mind. Orochimaru was too obsessed with his personal revenge and fear of death to truly appreciate his talents. And yet, Maleficent, she remained the biggest enigma of all. Hello, Hitaki Kakashi, he spoke at last, turning around to face the copy ninja. His lone visible eye was narrowed, scrutinizing him with the cool finesse of a hunting cat. Kabuto smirked. It's an honor to meet you. 7 times you've tried for the Chunin exams. 7 times you've failed, Kakashi noted flatly. Though this is the first time you went ahead with a match. Orochimaru trying to make an example of you. If you capture me now, you might not be able to prove the connection between me and Orochimaru, Kabuto smoothly replied. No, but at this point I really don't care about that. I just want answers, Kakashi retorted. Kabuto shrugged. At this point, it didn't really matter. Orochimaru wished to punish me for my insolence, by sending me up against Naruto-san. His smirk grew just a bit wider. Shame such a weak mind is behind that kind of power, he mused aloud, the Keyblade and the Kyubi no Kitsune. Give it enough time, and he could become the most powerful warrior on this, and any other world. If that's the case, why is your master interested in Sasuke? Kakashi asked. Kabuto shook his head. I should think that would be obvious. He wants complete mastery of all things ninja, before moving on to bigger, better things. Such as, and I should give it all away to you because you are such a little brat, kid, Kakashi grunted. Kabuto smirked. A kid as strong as you are. But I'm already behind schedule as it is. With that, one of the ANBU corpses got up and threw itself through the window, as Kabuto slumped, falling dead to the floor with a sickly smile. Kakashi looked out the smashed window, seeing the ANBU pull off his mask and reveal the same, smirking face before he vanished. The Jounin sighed, checking the fake Kabuto over. I see. He used that jutsu to reanimate the corpse and disguise it as himself just long enough to provide a distraction and escape. Kakashi turned again to the window, lone eye narrowed. Whatever Orochimaru's plans, Sasuke. I can't let you be taken. He grimaced. And I can't let Naruto fall into his webs either. What am I going to do? Back at the tower, the Inuzuka cracked his knuckles and grinned, as Akamaru barked beside him. Just to warn you, we've been training against Hinata, so don't think you've got anything we can't handle. The white-eyed boy merely smirked, and settled into the traditional Hyuga Juken stance. Let's go Akamaru! Kiba shouted, charging Niji straight on. The Hyuga's eyes bulged as his bloodline activated, and he easily dodged Kiba's first punch. Akamaru attacked from the opposite side, but Niji merely batted him away, a burst of blue chakra leaving his hand as Akamaru yelped, "What the dash? Akamaru!" Kiba shouted, throwing several smoke bombs. Niji frowned, scanning the smoke for only a moment. Before pulling a kunai to block the weapons thrown at him easily, "Do you think you can really win that way?" The Hyuga asked drolly. Kiba laughed. "Just setting you up, girly boy." Tsuga. Kiba spun up into a tornado and launched himself at Niji, who easily dodged the attack and the follow-up as the living maelstrom curved around again. Kiba ceased his spinning and skidded to a halt, Akamaru leaping next to him. The little dog was panting, but still determined to fight. "Looks like we'll have to go all out, boy," Kiba said. He pulled a red pill from his weapons pouch and tossed it to the dog, who swallowed it. His fur turned red and the little dog grew in size, snarling at the still smirking Niji. "This one's gonna take you down for sure." "Shikyaku no Jutsu!" Kiba shouted. He made hand seals, chakra flaring out of his body as he began to change. His canines extended, his fingernails became claws, and his entire manner became more beast-like. "Jujin Bunshin!" He snarled out, and Akamaru poofed into a mirror image of his master, growling in stereo. The two charged up with chakra, as Niji simply stood there. "Getsuga!" Both Kibas roared, becoming larger and more powerful drilling tornadoes that sped straight for Niji. The Hyuga narrowed his amazing eyes, bending his knees only slightly, before slamming both hands out into either tornado, chakra pulses blowing both Akamaru and Kiba out of their transformations and crashing to the ground. "Kiba!" Hinata cried out in shock, as Kiba groaned, staggering back up to his feet. He turned back and gaped at the smirking Hyuga. "How? How the hell did you do that?" My Byakugan can trace how chakra is applied and molded, inside and around your body. In this case, your Getsuga has your chakra flaring out of your Tenketsu points in a wild spin. I merely applied just enough chakra to disrupt your flow, and bring you both out of the jutsu. Niji settled forward in an attacking stance. "Now, it's time to end this. You're in range of my divination." Hakrokujion Sho, 8 trigrams, 64 palms. Niji sprang forward with incredible speed, fingers burning with bright blue chakra as they lanced out, striking the stunned Kiba at an ever-increasing speed. 2 palms. 4 palms. 8 palms. 16 palms. 32 palms. 64 palms, 8 trigrams. The chakra blasts closed every one of Kina's Tenketsu points, making him scream in agony as the fire-hot chakra burned into his body. Swaying a bit, blood dripping from his mouth, Kiba fell forward, completely still. "Kiba! Kiba!" Hinata called out, a deep fear growing in the pit of her stomach. What kind of person was she, pushing Kiba into the arena like that? And now he was dash. "He's alive," Niji told the proctor flatly. And unable to continue. Winner, Hyuga Niji, Heiate coughed, as several medic ninja came out, putting Kiba and Akamaru on stretchers. Hinata shivered as Niji shot her a cold look, before resuming his trek up the stairs to Guy and Lee, who were loudly congratulating and cheering him. "Wosh! Excellent work, Niji! As expected of my eternal rival," Lee loudly declared. "Indeed! Well done, Niji!" Guy added. Niji managed a curt nod to both, before resuming staring out at the arena. Tenten offered him a smile, which he barely acknowledged as well. Hinata almost jumped when she felt a hand on her shoulder, but relaxed when she saw it was just Naruto, smiling at her. Hey, don't worry, he'll be fine. Dog boy's a lot tougher than he looks, right? The blonde suggested. Sure, he didn't like Kiba a whole lot, but Hinata clearly cared about him, so it was better to comfort her. Ha, I'm getting this friend thing down pretty well, Naruto thought. Hinata nodded with a shy smile. So, let's hope I'm the one who fights 2 matches. Naruto grinned. I mean, that thing with Kabuto. I want to show how strong I've gotten too. Why should Sakura-chan be the only one, right? Alright, Hinata nodded, shy smile growing a little more bold, even as anxiety appeared in her heart at his words. And touch. Even if it was just his hand on her shoulder, she couldn't help but turn bright red. Naruto-kun is touching me. Naruto-kun is touching me. Naruto-kun is touching. Naruto-kun is touching dash. Calm down, she told herself, taking deep breaths. She sighed, finally getting her blood pressure under control, though she was still blushing furiously. Hinata then frowned, another thought coming to mind. The only ones left are myself, the sand girl with the fan, the red-headed boy from Sand, Lee, Tenten, the last sound Kunoichi, and myself. Hinata laughed quietly at the absurdity of her musing. But what are the odds of Naruto having to fight another match, against me for that matter? Next match, began Hayate, Hyuga Hinata vs. Uzumaki Naruto. That's it for part 4. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.